They stopped me right at the gate. My 15-year-old daughter's hand was wrapped in mine when the security officer leaned in and whispered words that froze every bone in my body. "Ma'am, your deceased husband's account just triggered a federal alert. There's over $1 million in your name, tied to criminal activity." $1 million? Criminal activity? Ethan died owing hospital bills, or so I believed. My heartbeat stumbled, not because of the money, but because of him. The officer glanced around, lowered his voice like the truth itself was dangerous. "His family claims you stole it." His family. The Millers, who never cried at his funeral, who hugged me like a sister, then turned me into their favorite monster. Lily looked up at me, fear trembling under her brave eyes, and I forced a smile. Mothers don't panic in airports. Mothers turn into stone, but inside, a storm ripped through me. Because Ethan, the man I fed hope to when death pressed on his chest, spent his last breaths whispering, "There's nothing left. I swear." Nothing left. Yet now, there was a fortune. A secret fortune he died trying to hide. Was he protecting us, or protecting the people hunting him? Security stepped closer. "Ma'am, you and your daughter can't board. Not until we understand everything." And I realized this wasn't a question. This was a verdict already written. A warning delivered too late. I straightened my spine. If a war waited behind this gate, I wasn't the widow they expected. Not anymore. Stay till the end. You'll understand why he lied. The private security room felt nothing like the bright terminal outside. It was quiet. A little too quiet. The kind where your own heartbeat becomes the loudest thing in the world. Lily sat next to me, trying to look brave, but her leg bounced under the chair, like her fear was trying to escape through her knee. Across from us, a young officer typed Ethan's name into a system so deep it could probably rewrite a person before breakfast. His eyes flicked across the screen faster than his fingers, confusion tightening his features as more and more information piled up. "Your husband," he said slowly, like the words tasted strange, "wasn't poor at all." My throat dried. Ethan once came home with tears in his eyes because he couldn't afford a birthday cake for Lily. He cried over bills, over medicine, over hope. Yet $1 million now sat in my name. The officer frowned deeper. "These accounts, they aren't normal. Offshore transfers, flags from multiple agencies. Some of these entries..." He hesitated. He didn't want to finish. I clenched my hands together. "Say it." He swallowed. "Some of these transactions happened after his death." Lily gasped. I couldn't move. Before fear could freeze me further, the door swung open, and in walked a woman wearing entitlement like perfume. Designer coat, sharp heels, that same venom-sweet smile I knew too well. Victoria Miller, Ethan's sister, his shadow's shadow. She approached us, arms open, voice fake warm. "Oh, Grace, dear, you should have called. We're family. We would have helped handle this." Family, a funny word when used by traitors. I stood between her and Lily without thinking. "You knew this was going to happen," I said. Her smile sharpened. "Of course I did. Ethan trusted us with his real life." "Did he ever trust you with anything important?" The officer cleared his throat, trying to keep control of the situation. "Ma'am, please take a seat." Victoria sat like a queen preparing to dethrone someone, crossing her long legs with a smug tilt of her chin. "You must understand," she said, voice dipped in honey and poison, "that money doesn't belong to you. Ethan helped build something powerful, something bigger than you can imagine. Something bigger, something darker." She leaned forward. "He was family. We protected him. We supported his work. You just got the leftovers." Her cruelty didn't hurt me. It angered me. She didn't know I wasn't breakable anymore. "Then why?" I asked quietly. "Did he leave it all to me?" For the first time, she blinked wrong. Too fast, a crack in her perfect mask. "He made a mistake," she hissed. "One I am here to correct. That money must be signed back to us before someone else claims it." "Someone else?" I asked. Her eyes flicked toward Lily, just for a second, just enough for dread to sprout roots. Before I could speak, Lily whispered, voice trembling, "Dad told us to stay away from you." Victoria froze. That hit her ego like a slap. "Your father was confused at the end," she said sharply. "He was tired, sick. He didn't know who to trust." "No," I said. "He finally did." The officer cut in again, eyes narrowing at Victoria as he noticed her tension. "We must verify the source of these funds," he said, turning the screen slightly toward me. "There are multiple aliases, hidden companies, and sudden cash influxes. Did your husband ever mention working outside the law?" The room seemed to tilt. Every memory of Ethan arrived wielding suspicion. Late-night phone calls, blood he called wine, a new car he claimed was gifted, a gun he said was for safety. And that final whisper, "Don't trust them." My heart didn't shatter. It aligned with truth. Victoria smiled again, but this one was tired, shaking under the weight of exposure. "Grace," she whispered urgently, "please, if you love Lily, just sign it over." Love Lily? That was the only thing I had done right. I stood slowly, placing my hands on Lily's shoulders, shielding her from Victoria's hunger. No. One word, a shift in power. Victoria didn't smile this time. She bared her teeth. "You don't know what Ethan was a part of," she whispered. "If you keep that money, you'll inherit his enemies." "I already inherited his truth," I replied. "And that's more than you ever had." The officer stood then, as if sensing the confrontation could ignite into something dangerous. "We'll need more time," he said. "Please remain in the terminal until we complete verification." Victoria stepped closer, voice low, controlled fury vibrating beneath. "You think this is a problem you can walk away from? That money carries blood, Grace, and blood always calls for more." She turned and walked out, heels sharp, steps short, temper boiling. The door shut behind her. The silence felt like a trap snapping shut. Lily looked at me, eyes full of fear and trust. "Mom, what did Dad do?" I inhaled slowly, absorbing the truth like a poison. He didn't leave us with nothing. He left us with everything he shouldn't have. But mothers don't fall apart in front of their children. Mothers turn fear into armor. I squeezed her hand, and with a voice stronger than I felt, whispered, "We will find the truth, Lily, no matter how dark it is." Because survival wasn't enough anymore. We needed justice. Before Ethan died, the fractures were subtle, the kind you convince yourself are temporary, until you see they were warnings. It began with money that appeared from nowhere and disappeared just as fast. He'd say, "A deal closed," or "A friend paid me back." But he never explained. He always smiled when he lied. I didn't notice that then. Love blinds smart women. He worked late-night hours, stepping outside to take calls on the balcony, where the moon couldn't expose his face. I'd ask who he was talking to, and he'd kiss my forehead instead of answering. That's how silence becomes reassurance. That's how lies become lullabies. Then the gifts started. Not small tokens, but things that felt too heavy for our budget. A diamond necklace on our anniversary, a designer bag. Lily got limited edition shoes that sold out in minutes online. When I asked how he could afford all this, he'd pull me into his arms and whisper, "You deserve more than I can give." It sounded romantic. It should have sounded like a clue. Lily noticed more than I did. She always does. One night, she walked into the living room holding a shirt of Ethan's, maroon, stained at the collar. "Mom," she whispered, "this isn't wine." The stain was thicker, darker. It smelled like metal. I confronted Ethan. He laughed, kissed my cheek, and said, "I spilled from a bottle a friend brought. You worry too much." His words were silk. His eyes were steel. He started holding his phone like a lifeline, slipping it under his pillow at night, flinching whenever a notification buzzed. He changed his passcode twice in 1 month. When he thought I wasn't looking, he'd delete whole conversations with a swipe, like erasing fingerprints. There were knocks at the door past midnight. If I opened it, no one was there. If he opened it, someone whispered outside before he came back in. Angrier, quieter. Then there were his family gatherings, dinners that felt like interrogation rooms. Ms. Miller, his mother, would smile too wide and say, "Ethan was meant for great things." Victoria would scan me like inventory, and when Ethan stepped away, her sweet face melted to stone. "He belongs with us," she once said, voice low enough that only I could hear. "Don't make him choose." Choose what? Choose who? The scariest fractures are the ones that feel like love. One night, Ethan dragged himself home hours after midnight. His shirt was wrinkled, hair messed like he'd been pulling it. His hands shook. I asked him if he was okay. He looked at Lily's door, closed, then at me. "Everything I do to protect you both," he said. His voice cracked. He hugged me too tight, like he feared letting go. His heart raced through his chest like it was trying to escape him. "What are you protecting us from?" I asked. He didn't answer. He only kissed me once more. Desperate, apologetic, like goodbye. Lily saw us. She didn't say anything, but her eyes said everything. A week later, he collapsed in the kitchen. The paramedics worked on him while I screamed his name. His pulse returned, then slipped away again. I held his hand as it grew cold. That was the first time I ever saw him powerless. His family arrived quickly, suspiciously quickly. Victoria didn't shed a tear. Her first question wasn't, "How did it happen?" It was, "Did he leave anything behind?" Not love, not memories, assets. I realized then that I had married into a family that treated people like investments, and wives like liabilities. I kept replaying Ethan's final nights, every conversation like a puzzle missing the piece that proved the picture was never love. It was a contract. After the funeral, Victoria hugged Lily and whispered too close to her ear, "Your father left us a legacy. You'll understand when you're older." Lily jerked away and hid behind me. Her heart knew danger before mine did. Bills came. I sold my car. We ate noodles 3 nights in a row. And Ethan's family never offered a dime, not even condolences. They wanted me desperate. They wanted me scared. They wanted me weak. But fear sharpens a woman. It turns her into a locksmith. She starts opening every door she once accepted being locked. That's when I truly looked at the fractures and saw the truth. Ethan didn't hide money. He hid a life financed by people who don't forgive betrayal, a life that would follow us even after his heart stopped beating. Victoria once said, "He belongs with us." I finally understood what she meant. The man I loved never belonged to me, but the danger he left behind, that belonged to us. Every unfinished sentence, every night he came home shaking, every gift that felt like a bribe, every lie he packaged as love. They were clues he didn't expect me to use. Now, they were ammunition. From that day forward, I stopped remembering Ethan as my husband. I started remembering him as my warning. The house felt like a museum after Ethan died. Same walls, same furniture, different truth. Every picture of him became a lie framed in glass. Lily, now 15 and wiser than her years, would walk past those photos with her chin raised, like she refused to let his eyes follow her anymore. She asked questions I wasn't ready to answer. "Mom, if Dad loved us, why did he keep secrets? Why were his hands shaking? Why did he look at Victoria like she owned him?" I tried to protect her, so I told half-truths, not because I wanted to lie, but because the truth was heavier than grief. "I don't know," I'd say, even though I did. Fear wasn't the enemy anymore. Knowing was. Victoria started visiting. Too often. She arrived with documents she pretended I needed to sign. Just signatures, Grace. Family matters. Her smile was too wide, her tone too calm, her eyes too hungry. When she spoke to Lily, her voice dripped sweetness. When she spoke to me, her words had claws. She'd sit at the dining table stirring tea she never drank, just stirring clink, 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 like she was waiting for me to break. Lily watched every movement, right through her. One evening, Lily leaned close and whispered, "She's not here to help." "No," I replied quietly. "She's here to claim what she thinks is hers." But Victoria didn't scare me anymore. She offended me. When she failed to manipulate me with paperwork, she changed tactics. Ethan was a powerful man, she'd say softly. He worked with people who respected him. You don't want those people upset. Not advice. A warning. Sometimes she would accidentally reveal things. He secured money for extremely valuable clients. He traveled to places you never knew. He made sacrifices. Sacrifices. What a pretty word for crime. I learned to respond with silence. Silence makes the enemy speak more. Lily, meanwhile, began observing everything. She started sitting silently at the table with us, pretending to do homework while listening like a detective. Victoria pretended not to notice, but her fingers tapped faster, more aggressively against her untouched teacup. Finally, Lily asked her directly, "What did my dad do for a living?" Victoria froze. For the first time, she stammered. "He helped people move their money." "Why did he need a gun for that?" Lily challenged. Victoria's smile died. Her eyes narrowed. She stood up and left without saying goodbye. That was the moment I realized. Lily wasn't afraid anymore. She was furious. Later that night, Lily handed me a page from her notebook, a drawing. Ethan at the table, head in his hands. Victoria behind him, whispering. Me and Lily at the doorway, watching the life we never knew we were in. "She controlled him," Lily whispered. "She controlled everything." My daughter didn't need protection from the truth. She needed preparation for the fight, so I began watching even closer. When Victoria visited next, I folded Ethan's jacket slowly while she talked, smoothing every wrinkle with deliberate, calm hands. Folding clothes is a quiet act, but in that moment, it was power. She wanted chaos. I gave her composure. It rattled her. "You should trust us, Grace," she said. "You're all alone now." "No," I replied. "I have Lily, and she sees everything." Victoria turned sharply to look at my daughter, and Lily didn't flinch. She stared back with a confidence she inherited from survival. That's when Victoria made the mistake that told me everything. She leaned toward Lily and whispered, thinking I wouldn't hear, "You're stronger when you're with us. Don't forget that." My blood boiled. Us? Who exactly is us? I took Lily by the hand, stood between them, and simply said, "We are strong because we left you." Victoria's face cracked, rage leaking through the paint. She grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door. But before she could leave, she turned and delivered one more line. A puzzle piece. "Ethan wanted you out of the way. Don't make us finish what he couldn't." The room fell silent. My pulse roared. Lily gasped. Victoria realized what she'd just revealed and fled. When the door slammed shut, Lily whispered, "Dad wasn't trying to protect us from them. He was protecting them from us." I exhaled slowly, letting my fear reshape into something sharper. "Not anymore," I told her. "We're done being the ones who don't know." In that moment, emotional distance turned into strategy. We were no longer reacting. We were preparing. And the only thing more dangerous than a woman lied to is a mother who finally knows why. The night before our flight, I opened Ethan's closet for the last time. His clothes still held the scent of him, a cologne he once said was a gift from a client. I used to believe everything he said. Now every memory carried suspicion. As I took the jacket off its hanger, something slid from the inner pocket and hit the hardwood floor with a dull, metallic tap. A USB drive, small, silver, unlabeled, and ice cold, like it remembered the hands that hid it. It didn't belong to our life, which meant it belonged to his. I plugged it into my laptop. It didn't ask for a password, as if Ethan expected only me to open it. A single folder appeared. Inside, banking records, offshore corporations, encrypted transfers, millions moving across oceans like shadows trading secrets, names I didn't recognize, dates I wished I didn't. Then a video file at the bottom. If she sees this, it's over. My breath caught. He meant me, I whispered. With a shaking finger, I clicked play. The screen filled with Ethan's face, older, hollowed out by fear, eyes darting like prey. His hands trembled as he adjusted the camera. Grace. His voice cracked. If you're watching this, I'm dead. I gripped the table edge so hard my nails dug into the wood. I worked for dangerous people. I thought I could walk away if I cooperated. But the more I knew, the harder it became to escape. He paused, exhaled like the truth itself suffocated him. I transferred everything to your name. Evidence, money, protection, and a target. A target on us. They'll tell you I stole it, he continued, but it wasn't theft. It was the cost of surviving them. His voice lowered into desperation. Victoria is one of them. Her loyalty isn't to our family, and it's to the organization. And she will come for you, for Lily. My heart dropped. Victoria didn't want answers. She wanted silence. If they find this drive, they will erase you both, he warned. They erase anyone who knows too much. The screen glitched as he looked around, someone likely outside the frame. I never deserved you, he whispered. Defeat and devotion tangled in his voice, but I loved you with every wrong choice I made. The video ended. My hands shook, my lungs tightened. Tears blurred the screen, not for Ethan, but for the truth he buried with his lies. A soft voice behind me. Mom? Lily had seen enough. She wrapped her arms around me from behind, her head against my back. She didn't cry. She was past tears. Now she was fire. What do we do? She whispered. I wiped my face, stood tall, closed the laptop. Now we stop running. Lily nodded, strength radiating from her small frame. We packed our bags again, not to flee, but to fight in daylight. The next morning, as we stood in the terminal surrounded by hundreds of strangers, I saw Victoria across the lobby. She watched us like a vulture who thought she'd already claimed her prey. That smug smile, as if she knew the ending, but she didn't know we had a new script. The officer who stopped us earlier returned with another update. We've detected massive irregularities, he said. We'll need that device. His tone wasn't protective anymore. It was greedy. I stepped back, clutching the bag with the USB. No. His jaw tightened. That was his mistake. He assumed I was defenseless. Ma'am, he began. You threaten me. You threaten my daughter. I cut him off. You don't want to know what I do next. His eyes flicked toward Victoria, panic flashing for a split second. And that's when I knew he was one of them. Lily slipped her hand into mine, grounding me, sharpening me. A different officer suddenly rushed over, firmer stance, federal badge. Grace Miller? He asked quietly. Yes. Agent Carter, he said, flashing credentials that looked too real to fake. We need to speak privately, right now. He nodded toward Victoria and the crooked officer. They can't know what we discuss. Finally, an ally, or so I prayed. We followed him through a restricted door into a secured office, and for the first time, someone looked at me not like a suspect or a pawn, but like the center of the chessboard. Agent Carter leaned forward. You're not just a widow caught in the middle. You're holding evidence that could take down a criminal empire. We've been tracking the organization for years." He paused. "Your husband was one of their biggest players." I swallowed anger and heartbreak together. "I need to protect my daughter." He nodded once, firmly. "And we'll help you, but we need a plan that gives us a clear shot at the entire network." That was the moment a quiet vow formed in me. Stronger than grief, stronger than fear. I will finish what Ethan tried and failed to do. I will end them. Agent Carter laid out the first move. Let Victoria believe she's winning. Make the handover look real. When she reaches for greed, we strike. My heart steadied like a soldier accepting battle. Lily looked up at me, fierce and fearless. "Let them come," she said. I smiled. Small, sharp, dangerous. Exactly. Because we weren't the hunted anymore. We were hunters, and they were already bleeding. After the meeting with Agent Carter, nothing stayed the same. The airport felt like a battlefield where everyone pretended to be a traveler. Every announcement, every rolling suitcase, every laugh sounded like cover for something else. We left in plain clothes and sat in the back of a coffee shop while Carter outlined moves like a chess player, tracing lines of attack. "Victoria thinks you're a mark," he said. "Make it convincing. Let her take the bait, but don't let her see the teeth behind the smile." He slid a small device across the table. A burner phone with secured lines. "Use this. Call the number only when we tell you. Never speak to anyone else about the drive." I took it like a hand grenade wrapped in trust. Lily watched Carter with the steady attention of someone who reads maps to find exits. She was not a child anymore. She was a witness with a ledger in her head. We made a show of vulnerability. I cried in front of the cameras the lawyers arranged. I signed a form that looked like a surrender, but was actually a step in Carter's plan. Every falsified weakness was a thread we intended to pull. Victoria would see it and bite. That night, I noticed the first micro-twist. An airport officer who had been polite earlier flashed his badge too long, then sent a quick text that said only, "Move tonight." He didn't know I'd already recorded it. Predators never stop thinking they are clever enough. Carter had men and women in quiet places. They mapped Victoria's calls, tracked her movements, and watched her lawyer like a hawk. But the deeper they dug, the more the picture shifted. Names surfaced that didn't look like family, corporations with shelf addresses, men with clean lives and dirty hands, people who smiled on TV and laundered secrets in boardrooms. One night, I overheard two voices in the lounge near Gate 14. They spoke in soft, clipped tones like professionals trading favors. "She's cooperating," one said. "Move the girl after the transfer." The other chuckled low. "Leave the rest to us." I caught the reflection of their faces in the window. Neither wore a uniform. Both had the quiet ease of men who never got caught. My stomach sank. The threat was wider than feathers and teeth. It had fangs and lawyers and men who paid for silence. Carter tightened the circle. "We can protect you," he told me, "but we can't protect you if you make mistakes. Lily must be invisible until the handoff is done." Lily listened and accepted. She turned her phone screen down and learned to look small in a room full of loud people. She learned to let her presence be thin until the right moment. In those days, I watched her grow into a woman who could move through danger like light slips through glass. We staged the transfer. I signed the documents Carter had prepared, and Victoria beamed as her lawyer pretended to read clauses he didn't understand but wanted desperately to believe. She slipped a pen across the table with the smug satisfaction of a woman who thought she had the end in her hands. But Victoria's phone buzzed under the table, and her smile stuttered. She typed quickly, eyes scanning the text. Then she glanced up and met my gaze. For a second, I thought she might warn Carter, but she didn't. She laughed instead, the sound like a blade sheathed momentarily. That was the second micro-twist. She was nervous and still chose theater. either arrogance or fear. Both can be exploited. Right when she reached for the final signature, Carter's team triggered the scene. Officers stepped in. Victoria's lawyer made a grab for the folder. Phones were seized. Shouts filled the small room. Agents dismantled the lawyer's link to a shell company and traced payments to numbered accounts. Then the micro misdirection. One of Victoria's associates tried to escape through the men's room, carrying a small hard drive. He slipped on a wet tile and fell, the drive skittering across the floor until a uniformed officer kicked it under a bench. The man cursed and ran, but Carter's men were already 2 steps ahead. Victoria reacted violently, slamming the table, lungs burning with betrayal. She turned on me, sharp and wild. "You think you can trick us?" she hissed. "You think you can play the widow and the martyr?" Her voice wavered because she knew something else. Someone above her had eyes on this, and this sting was only a corner of the net. Carter's voice stayed calm. "We have everything we need to charge her. We also have enough to take down people 10 times her size." He locked eyes with me, and for the first time I felt the scale shift outward. This wasn't just our fight. It was a cleanup of a system built on fear. But the danger got its last bite of surprise. That night, an envelope slid under my door, plain, white, no stamp. Inside, a photo. Ethan standing under a city skyline I didn't recognize. He looked alive in the picture. Younger, braver, not the hollow man on video. On the back, scrawled in a hand I didn't know. 3 words. "We remember everything." That small, ugly note moved the ground beneath my feet. It told a story Carter couldn't trace yet. Someone outside the family, or someone deeper inside it, still watched, still remembered, still wanted retribution. We tightened security. Cameras were placed at our gate. Carter arranged for safe houses and backup plans, but each safety we added felt like a bandage over a wound that could be reopened. Lily learned to sleep with lights on. I learned to carry patience like a weapon. We practiced leaving the house in under 60 seconds. We learned to answer the burner only on Carter's signal, and we kept the USB drive locked in a case water couldn't dissolve. At odd moments, in the silence between alerts, I would think of Ethan's final whisper, the one that told me to protect Lily at any cost. He had lied, and he had loved in the only way he knew. Now, his lies were a map, and maps can be used. One of Victoria's men called me the next morning from a blocked number, voice softened to apology. "We can make this easier," he said. "Give us the accounts and no one gets hurt." I didn't answer. I recorded the call and sent it to Carter. Carter's answer was simple and deadly calm. "Do not engage. Let them move until they overreach." So we waited, watching the board like players who knew the next move would change everything. Because in this game, every secret pulled on another secret, and every twist only revealed how deep the trap had been set. Agent Carter set the table like a surgeon preparing for an operation. No speeches, no drama, just tools laid out exactly where they needed to be. A duplicate transfer packet, a thin black folder labeled with dates, a scrambler that turned phones into useless glass, and a portable console that pulsed with quiet blue light. He looked at me, then at Lily, and spoke like a man who knew the cost of hesitation. "Today we stop reacting," he said. "Today we make them move where we want." I nodded once. I was done being pushed. Lily stood beside me, still and sharp, her attention steady as a metronome. The girl who used to draw storms had become the calm eye inside one. Carter walked us through the plan again. Victoria believed she had forced me to accept the handover. She expected the final signature today in a private room near the airline offices. Cameras inside the room were already dead, cut by Carter's team and replaced with our own. The document on the table would look like a transfer authorization. In reality, it was an evidence trap, watermarking every phone and laptop that photographed it, pulling device IDs, and pinging the larger servers they used to launder money. Trigger the signature, trigger the map, pull the empire. "Stay what you've been," he said to me. "Calm, grieving. Be the woman she thinks she can still bully." "And Lily?" I asked. "Close," he replied, "but not in the room. They see her as leverage. We won't give them that illusion again." We moved. The room was small and paneled in glass that looked mirrored from the outside. A long table, 4 chairs, 2 bottles of water arranged like props. Victoria arrived with a glide that tried to pass as Grace, followed by her lawyer and a man I hadn't seen before, compact, precise, eyes too cold for daylight. His name tag said Bryant. His watch said money. "Grace," Victoria sang, as if we were friends dressing for brunch, "I knew you were sensible." I sat hands folded, back straight. "I'm a mother," I said. "Sensible isn't a luxury, it's survival." Her smile widened, satisfied. "Then let's finish this." The lawyer slid the packet forward. The pages were dense, but my eyes were sharper now. I could see Carter's marks. Invisible unless you knew where to look. Threaded through the footer like veins. I kept my voice level and small, the way Victoria liked it. "Before I sign," I said, "I'd like you to answer one question. Not for me. For Lily." She tilted her head, annoyed but curious. "What could you possibly need to know?" "Why did Ethan look scared every time you called him?" I asked. "Why did he whisper when he said your name? Why did he tell me to keep our daughter away from you?" The lawyer cleared his throat. Victoria didn't blink. "Regret," she answered. "He regretted choosing you." There it was. Cruelty as hobby. It would have broken me once. Now it proved what mattered. She still didn't understand what I had become. I signed the first page. Pen steady, pulse steady. Carter would see the signal. His team would move. Victoria leaned forward, giddy behind the varnish, and gestured for the lawyer to continue. The door opened. Bryant stepped out and returned with a small case, setting it near the lawyer's hand. A precaution? A threat? My skin prickled. Carter had warned me. There would be improvisation. Power always improvises when it feels cornered. The lawyer slid the final page across the table. "This last signature authorizes the proxy," he said. "Once signed, our custodial account will—" The wall phone rang. Sharp, unexpected, loud enough to cut the performance. Victoria flinched. Bryant didn't. He watched me instead, like people do when they're memorizing the way a victim's face folds. The phone rang again. The lawyer stared at it, then at Victoria, unsure whether to answer. She lifted the receiver, chin high, voice dipped in sugar. "Yes?" She listened for 3 seconds. Her knuckles whitened. Her mouth tightened. She passed the receiver to Bryant. He listened. He didn't speak. When he hung up, he smiled at me, the rehearsed smile of a man who survives by shaping facts. "Change of procedure," he said softly. "We'll scan the document and complete the custody offshore. No need to keep you here." "Scan away," I replied. That was Carter's cue. The moment the scanner warmed, our console outside the room drank the signal. Device ID, ghost servers. A chain of addresses spidered across Carter's monitor like frost. Shell companies, compliance fronts, boutique firms with spotless websites and dirty basements. The console mapped it all in real time, blue lines racing toward the center. A bright node somewhere uptown. Bryant reached for the document. "We'll just—" I slid it back. "Not until we finish," I said. "You taught me to be thorough." The lawyer bristled. "This is irregular." "Everything about this is irregular," I said. "He died and we got richer. You arrived and called it love." Victoria leaned in, voice a whisper. "You never belonged, Grace. Ethan needed people like us to exist. You were garnish." The third micro twist landed without me trying. I laughed, not loud, not bitter. Just enough to show there was nothing left in me she could use. "Then why did he leave it to me?" I asked. "Why is your signature nowhere?" "Because he panicked," she snapped, "and because you are easy to destroy." "Then destroy me," I said. The air changed. For a second, everyone told the truth with their bodies. The lawyer squared his shoulders, trying to look taller. Bryant repositioned his feet like he preferred to move suddenly. Victoria's hand crept closer to the edge of the table, as if there were a button there that could make me vanish. The door opened again. 2 airport officers stepped in, not Carter's, the crooked ones. My heart climbed toward my throat, then steadied when I saw Carter pass behind them in the hall, calm and inevitable as winter. "Ma'am," one officer said to me, "we need to take you to secondary screening." "On what grounds?" I asked. "Non-compliance," he said, already reaching. I kept my voice level. "Touch me and you'll be famous for the wrong reason." He hesitated. Predators live on certainty. Taking it from them is its own kind of mercy. Victoria rose, emboldened by the uniforms. "This is done," she told me, almost gleeful. "Sign, leave, be grateful." I looked past her to the glass. Out in the corridor, Carter lifted his phone. Our console pulsed once, twice. The blue lines converged into one bright point that burst into a cascade of names, a list no one wanted seen. "Are you sure you want this on the record, Miss Miller?" Carter's voice rolled into the room like a verdict. He stepped inside with 3 agents and a warrant that belonged in museums. "Because if you do, we'll be happy to bring them all in." Bryant's calm cracked. The lawyer's face emptied. Victoria tried to regain the mask and found it didn't fit anymore. "On what authority?" the crooked officer demanded. Carter held up the warrant and the console. "Federal, Treasury, organized crime, and your own network scanner you so kindly activated." He nodded at the device. "Say hello to the last transfer you'll ever make." The crooked officer grabbed my arm anyway. Lily's voice flashed in my head, a small fury that had kept me from breaking. I turned my wrist, stepped back, and his grip slid off like water. "Don't," Carter said to him without looking. "You're already recorded." The room tilted toward a single pivot. Fight or fold. Bryant reached for the case. An agent stepped between us. The lawyer checked the door, saw more agents outside, and sat down like he suddenly remembered gravity. Victoria's last card was the one she always played: arrogance. She lifted her chin and smiled, a smaller, uglier version of the one she wore at family dinners. "You think this is the top?" she said. "It isn't." "I know," I answered, "but it's where you stop." She lunged for the document. The agent beside her moved faster. Handcuffs clicked around wrists that used to wear diamonds. She fought until the metal found bone, then stilled. Her eyes sought mine, looking for weakness she could still drink. "There are people above me," she hissed. "They will come for you." "Then they should have told you," I replied, "that I don't scare like I used to." Carter looked at me, and in his eyes I saw what he intended me to feel. Not victory, not revenge, but control. He turned to the lawyer. "Phone's on the table." To Bryant. "Open the case." To the officers. "You two, out." They obeyed because the room already knew who owned it. The case opened. Inside, a compact scanner and a second drive, a backup of greed. The agents photographed, bagged, tagged. Carter's console chimed. Another network strand lit up. The blue map pulsed like a captured heartbeat. The center node blinked, then broadened, revealing embedded schedules and meeting rooms labeled with bland names: Compliance Review A, Client Luncheon, Board Prep, Crime Performing Legitimacy. The crooked officers tried one last stand in the hallway. 2 agents flanked them and walked them out under internal arrest. No shouting, just the quiet collapse of a decision made too many times. Carter gathered the documents, the case, the scanner, and finally the pen. "Miss Miller," he said, turning to me with a small nod. "You've just given us the last thread." I looked at Victoria, wrists bound, hair falling from its perfect knot. She stared at me with something I had never seen in her eyes. Not hate, not even rage. Recognition. She finally understood the math. I wasn't the widow she could shape. I was the knife she taught herself to hold. They led her out. The lawyer followed, pale and sweating. Bryant walked last, eyes trained on me, memorizing what a woman looks like when she stops asking permission to breathe. When the door shut, the glass returned to mirror. I saw myself and almost didn't recognize the woman staring back, spine straight, eyes steady, a softness that had learned to be selective. Lily's reflection moved in beside mine, and I felt the truth slot into place. We had our proof. We had our plan. We had our power. Carter slipped a card onto the table. "We go public in 12 hours, he said. "Press, subpoenas, seizures. If any of them try to reach you, call this number. Don't speak. Don't engage." I picked up the card and held it like a boundary. "What happens to the money?" "It's evidence for now," he said. "But you'll get clarity, legal clarity, soon." I nodded. "I don't want their wealth. I want their ending." "You're getting both," he answered. We stepped into the corridor. The terminal's noise returned. Rolling luggage, announcements, the sound of lives continuing. It felt almost obscene that the world could be this normal while ours was busy ending and beginning at the same time. Lily slipped her hand into mine. "Did we win?" she whispered. "Not yet," I said. "But we took the ground they stood on." We walked toward the glass wall that looked over the runway. A plane lifted into a pale sky, engines humming like a long-held breath released. On the reflection, I saw movement. Agents assembling, officers repositioning, a small army ready to finish what we started. I exhaled and felt the weight shift from my chest to theirs. "Next," Carter said quietly, stepping up beside us, "comes the part where they hear your silence louder than their threats." He glanced at his watch, then at me. 12 hours. Rest if you can." I looked at Lily and smiled, not because everything was over, but because for the first time, the ending looked like something I could live inside. "Rest," I repeated, almost to myself, but rest would come later. First, we had to watch the empire fall. The next 12 hours moved like a slow, cold storm. Carter's team worked in silent rotations. Agents appeared and vanished, signatures were forged into evidence chains, and subpoenas were whispered into court clerks' ears like secrets dropped into graves. The airport filled with normal people and tucked inside their ordinary routines, the machinery of ruin we'd set in motion. Victoria's arrest became the wedge. When the anchors said, "Breaking news," I felt something loosen, not triumph, not joy, but a thin thread of relief I had forgotten existed. People I had never met watched our pain on glowing screens, then watched the justice we were staging. For a moment, I imagined Ethan watching too, if watching were possible beyond death, and I wondered if he would be ashamed or grateful. The question didn't matter. My choices had to matter for Lily. The betrayal peak arrived like a confession in court, public and bearing. Carter arranged a press conference in a secured room. Cameras fed live to networks. He placed the evidence on the table and spoke with a voice that made the room feel like a courtroom and an execution warrant at once. He read charges. He named names. He showed the transfer chains, the shell companies, the moments where ordinary signatures became instruments of theft. When he said Victoria's name and then Ethan's role, my chest clenched. The crowd's hum sharpened into a blade of attention. I could feel Lily's hand squeeze mine, small and fierce, and I didn't look away. Carter didn't let anyone spin sorrow into sympathy. He laid facts flat and let them burn. After the press, the real reversal happened. People who once bowed to the Millers stepped away. Board members resigned. Sponsors froze accounts. The family that moved like royalty found itself unpacked in public view, its gold turned to rust by exposure. Victoria's social photos sat next to headlines that read, "Miller Network Unveiled," and the gap between their curated image and the truth yawned wide. Then came the quietest betrayal of all, the one that hollowed me until I stopped trusting even my own memory. An old friend called from a number I recognized. She had been close to Ethan before we married. "Grace," she said, voice small and careful. "I always thought he'd change." I didn't know. Her silence after that sentence was louder than any accusation. In the end, everyone I thought I could count on had a layer I didn't see. The betrayal wasn't only Victoria's. It was a family portrait full of spent smiles. At home, the calls kept coming. Threats thin as breath and then blunt as bricks. One voice promised ruin, another begged for mercy. The days blurred as agencies moved through ledgers and servers like archaeologists, uncovering buried cities. Every arrest peeled a bandage from a wound I had thought sealed. Each revelation exposed a new bruise until the truth was so raw it was almost holy. The emotional peak didn't come from courtroom drama. It came in a small, private moment. Carter called one evening and said simply, "We can prosecute Victoria, but she's a small name in a long ledger. There is a bigger node above her." The pause after his sentence was full of maps and men I couldn't name. "We'll keep digging," he added, quieter, "but legally, Victoria is ours." I walked to Lily's room. She was on the bed, scrolling through news feeds with the same steady look she used when preparing arguments for debate club. She turned and asked, "Did Dad do all this?" Her voice was brittle and bright, the way glass can cut. "No," I said. "He helped hide it. He wasn't the king. He was a part of the crowd that learned too late how dangerous the crown could be." She closed her eyes, then opened them with the gravity of someone who had read the whole book in a day. "What now?" she asked. "We rebuild," I said. "We make sure nothing of his world touches ours again." Her hand found mine and squeezed. "Promise me we'll be honest about everything," she said. "No more secrets." I promised her, and the promise became a kind of justice. The following week, the Millers watched one of their own led into a courthouse and flanked by cameras. They were empty shells of the people who once smiled at family dinners. Their empire unraveled on television while I sat with Lily and Agent Carter and watched the news roll like a tide. We had won a public war. The villains were exposed. The system they protected began its slow collapse. But victory was not a single moment. It was a series of small reckonings. Victoria was convicted for fraud and conspiracy. Her lawyer took a plea. Other associates flipped and led agents to new leads. The money that had once been used to silence became evidence that secured indictments. At night, when the house was quiet, I would stand at the window and look at the stars like someone learning to believe the sky again. The betrayal still lived inside me, a wound with edges that stung. But it had a new shape, a shape I could hold without falling apart. The peak passed, leaving a clear ridge behind it. We stood on that ridge together, small but unbowed. Each person who chose truth over comfort had helped build the ledge we now stood on. Each name exposed on the records peeled away the illusion that their wealth could shield them from consequence. That was the betrayal peak. The moment the mask fell and the world saw the face beneath, it hurt, it burned. It also healed in the strangest way. With the light of truth, justice doesn't explode. It unfolds, one headline at a time, one pair of handcuffs at a time, one truth finally spoken aloud. In the days following Victoria's arrest, the dominoes fell fast. The Miller estate, once untouchable, became a crime scene with chandeliers. Agents raided offices sealed behind marble. Carter called it spring cleaning. I called it overdue. Powerful friends of the Millers suddenly remembered nothing. Their smiles vanished from glossy magazines, replaced by court sketches and redacted statements. Ethan's name, once whispered like a ticket into wealth, now appeared in bold letters under the words, "Criminal Organization." The world finally knew the version of him I had only seen in shadows. One morning, Lily and I stood outside a courtroom with Carter as reporters swarmed the steps, hoping for a quote. Cameras flickered like lightning. Microphones stretched like hungry mouths. Carter stepped forward and spoke. Grace Miller is not a criminal. She is a survivor of a system designed to bury the women tied to powerful men. The crowd erupted. My knees nearly buckled, not from fear anymore, but from the weight of being seen. Inside, the courtroom felt smaller than the truth it tried to contain. The judge read every charge against Victoria as if carving new gravity into law. Fraud, conspiracy, laundering, racketeering. Each word hammered the life she tried to live on the backs of people like us. Every sentence was a brick, sealing the door behind her. Victoria sat with unmatched calm, chin up like a statue who believed the sculptor wouldn't dare finish. But when the verdict hit, guilty on all counts, her hand jerked, fingers clawing the air for power that was no longer hers. She asked to speak. Arrogance survived even in shackles. The courtroom hushed. "You think exposing us saved you?" she spat, eyes venomous. "Ethan tried to leave. This is what happens to those who try. You should have stayed ignorant." I stood. The gallery gasped. "No," I replied. "We learned." Her eyes widened. She finally believed I was the one who beat her. As they escorted her away, she twisted once more in my direction. One final attempt to haunt me. It failed. Evil feels small when its microphone is taken away. Lily squeezed my hand. We walked out taller than we walked in. But justice isn't just courtrooms and headlines. Justice is peace. I wanted closure when not chaos, empowerment when not paranoia. So Carter arranged one last thing, a controlled meeting with the truth. We visited the evidence warehouse where they kept items seized from the Millers. There, locked away behind glass, Ethan's briefcase, the same one he guarded like a second skin. Carter unlocked the case while Lily and I stood close. Inside were ledgers, a gun, a photograph of him holding Lily as a baby, a note addressed, "For Grace." My heart slammed against my ribs. Carter stepped aside. "Take what will help you heal," he said. My hands shook as I opened the note. Ethan's handwriting, jagged, rushed. I thought I could walk away. I was wrong. If they take me, let them. Do not let them take you. He signed it with a heart he didn't deserve. I didn't cry, I didn't forgive, but I understood. He wasn't a villain by birth. He became one trying to protect his place in a world he never should have entered. He died trying to climb out. But his fall didn't have to be ours. I placed the note back into the file. "I'm choosing us," I said quietly. Carter nodded, sealing the case. That's justice, too. When the national broadcast aired, exposing the full network, Lily and I sat together on our couch. Her head rested against me as the news anchor said, "The Miller organization has collapsed." Not may collapse, not is under investigation. Has collapsed. The world finally had closure. So did we. Lily whispered, "We're safe now, right?" I wrapped my arm around her. "Yes, we're safe." And this time, we both believed it. That night, I packed away the last reminders of Ethan, not to hide the past, but to honor the lessons it left behind. I lit a small candle by the window, a signal, a prayer, a memorial. Not for the man he was, but for the future he didn't destroy. I closed my eyes and breathed in a way I hadn't since love turned into lies. Free, full, fearless. No more stolen money. No more hidden guns. No more sleepless nights. We didn't just survive the storm. We built a life on the ground it cleared. Justice didn't roar. It settled. It stayed. And in its quiet, we healed. After the courts finished their work and the last headline faded from social media, there was a quiet that felt unfamiliar. Not the uneasy quiet that hides danger. A gentle one that made me realize how loud fear had been in our lives. Lily and I moved across town into a home designed with peace in mind. Open windows, soft light, a porch swing that didn't creak like a warning. The first night there, I walked through every room twice, not because I was scared, but because it felt unreal to be safe. She decorated her room with photos of us, not as we survived, but as we healed. Smiles we earned, sunsets we captured, notes we left each other to remind ourselves we were still here. I began therapy. I spoke Ethan's name without flinching. I told the truth about loving someone who weaponized secrets. I let myself grieve the man he could have been, because closure isn't about forgetting, it's about choosing what stays. One evening, I opened a box filled with the last pieces of Ethan's life. His wedding ring, his favorite tie, the photo of him holding newborn Lily. The sealed evidence note Carter forced me to keep, I placed the ring in my palm. Cold metal warmed slowly against my skin. I remembered promising forever to a man who was holding two futures, one for me and one hidden in shadows. I whispered into the dim room, I release you. Not forgiveness, not permission. A release of blame I didn't need to carry. And for the first time, the grief didn't bite. It loosened. Lily found me there and sat beside me. I don't hate him, she said. I nodded. We don't have to hate him to move forward. She slipped her hand over mine. We're stronger because of the truth. Her voice wasn't shaky anymore. It was steady. A brand new life speaking. Spring arrived quickly. Lily returned to school, and teachers noticed something different about her. Confidence, purpose, the fire of a girl who learned the value of her own voice. She joined debate competitions, won 2, then 3. She started telling her story in pieces, helping others who lived in fear but didn't have a name for it yet. It's not what happens to you, she told them. It's what you decide to build from it. As for me, I started volunteering, helping women navigate the justice system the way Carter guided me. Paperwork, advocacy, protection, things that look small until you need them desperately. Sometimes justice is a courtroom. Sometimes justice is a woman holding another woman's hand and saying, "You're not alone." We kept our porch swing tradition. Every evening we sat there with warm mugs and watched the sky change colors like it had something to prove. Silence became a friend, not a warning. Lily asked one night, "Do you think Dad ever wished he had done better?" I looked at the stars, steady and patient. "Yes," I said, "he wished it every day, but wishes don't change the world." "We do." She smiled, soft, confident, healed. In that moment, I realized something. The story was never about Ethan's lies. It was about our survival, our transformation, our rise. And rising didn't require revenge. It required peace. That was the greatest justice we could give ourselves. 1 year later, our home hums with quiet joy now. Lily stands in front of the mirror, smoothing her graduation gown. She's 17, taller, stronger, a young woman who walks with purpose instead of apology. She turns and grins at me, excitement glowing in her eyes. "We did it," she says. I nod. Yes, we did. Friends gather for a small celebration in our backyard. Laughter replaces fear. Light replaces shadows. Lily opens her acceptance letters, schools that want her brilliance, not her pain. She chooses the one closest to home. "Just 1 more year together before I fly," she says. My heart folds into itself with love. We take photos. We dance under strings of lights. We celebrate being alive. Later, when the guests leave, Lily and I sit once more on the porch swing that carried our grief and now carries our hope. "Mom," she says, resting her head against my shoulder, "do you ever wish things were different?" I lace my fingers through hers. "No, because then we wouldn't be this strong." She smiles. "We're free now." "Yes," I whisper, "we're free." Stars stretch across the sky above us. The world is quiet, not with fear, but with promise. We didn't choose this battle, but we chose how it ended. Sometimes life breaks you. Sometimes it rebuilds you. But the strongest stories are the ones you rewrite yourself. We won't forget the past, but we will never live inside it again, Because sometimes being left behind is the fastest way to get ahead, and nothing, not lies, not betrayal, not fear, can take away the future we fought for. What would you have done in Grace's place? Tell your story in the comments. Your strength might help someone find theirs. If this story touched you, like, share, and subscribe for more stories of survival, courage, and quiet victory. Have you ever trusted the wrong people? Share your experience in the comments. You're not alone anymore. And tell me in the comments where in the world you are listening from. I love to know how far these stories travel.